Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here this afternoon, or thank you for listening to me on this presentation or this conversation. I really appreciate it. I'm really here today to talk about the challenges that I see with respect to the small business set-aside programs. As many of you know, for a period of 7 years, I ran these programs under the Obama administration at the Small Business Administration. And as many of you know, since then, I've been an advocate and been assisting small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large or other than small businesses participate in these programs. And quite frankly, from my perspective, these small businesses, I've always said this, these are the secret weapon that the U.S. has, because small business participation in federal contracting creates competition, creates innovation, creates a small business industrial base, allows our agencies to be effective in the international arena against our adversaries, including the Department of Defense, strengthens our industrial base, our supply chains, and small business is a critical part of that. And so these programs, to a large extent, actually get the current administration what they really want. The current administration talks about our competitiveness on the world stage. The current administration talks about a resilient supply chain and a resilient and strong defense industrial base. These programs are critical to getting us there. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, these programs have been misconstrued. And when I say these programs, I mean the small business set-aside programs. And you could even look at the 8A program in particular. These programs have been misconstrued as DEI and handouts. They're the farthest things from those, right? And we're seeing a concerted attack on these programs. You know, I always say there are no coincidences, right? If you look at these programs and how they've been challenged, number one, we saw the federal acquisition or the revolutionary federal acquisition rewrite. That, to a large extent, eliminated or minimized not only the sole source requirements that are on the 8A program, it minimized or eliminated or removed reference to the advocates, which are the small business specialists or the Small Business Administration Procurement Center representatives. It eliminated references to those. Now, in and of itself, one would say, well, John, you're overreacting. They're just simplifying the federal acquisition regulations. But then you look at the court challenges, and then you look at a suspect, and I say suspect because most of the allegations around ATI have been found to be untrue. Then you look at a suspect investigative report, undercover investigative report on a tribal 8A organization where most of the allegations were actually found to be untrue. But that didn't stop anybody, right? Then you look at this full-blown audit of all 8A participants in the program to produce documents that have heretofore never been asked for, right? And what does that mean? What are they fishing for? We don't know. How are they going to get that data? What tools are they going to use? Because they certainly don't have the manpower. We don't know. You look at legislation that Senator Ernst put forward that said we need to put a hold on 8A sole source opportunities or awards until a full audit is done, either by the SBA or the GAO. And then you look at the number of applications that have been approved. I know you guys have seen this. We've produced documentation on this and have written about this. 2024, 508A applications were approved. 2025, 66. And 45 of those were under the previous administration before January 20. So when you put all this together and look at it holistically, these programs in general and the 8A program in particular are under attack. My concern is, and some might say, John, you're blowing this out of proportion. The administration is addressing fraud, waste, and abuse. There are mechanisms in government to address fraud, waste, and abuse outside of what's happening today. There are mechanisms in government that are equipped with and authorized to conduct these types of audits. The Office of Inspector Generals. They exist at the Small Business Administration. They exist at the Department of Defense. They exist in every federal agency. They are the police of that federal agency and are tasked to rot out fraud, waste, and abuse. So the over-expansive requirement to produce documents that just came out from the Small Business Administration, and by the way, not from the program office, but from the Office of General Counsel, is unheard of. And so these attacks are a concerted effort to undermine these programs, to identify them as DEI and handouts, to find one or two fraud cases, parade them around, and then use that as a way to cancel these programs. And I'm overly concerned about that. And I feel to a large extent that sometimes we are the only ones raising the red flag. Traditional advocates of these programs, traditional associations that have historically supported these programs are largely quiet and absent. I have seen no challenges with respect to the latest data request and data dump that SBA has demanded. That, by the way, if you do not respond to the demand, you are challenged with being removed from the program or terminated from the program. That's unheard of. And so I don't see any of the traditional advocates raising a red flag, challenging what's happening today, and really addressing it head on. And that's why I'm here today. That's why I've published the blog post that I've published. And I really encourage those who have historically stood up and held the mantle for not only the 8A program, but for the small business programs. I encourage everybody to take the moment to really understand what's going on and to raise challenges with respect to what's happening with these programs. These programs are not DEI. These small business programs are at the heart of our competitiveness. They're at the heart of the industrial base. They're at the heart of competition. Yes, they create economic development. That's the intent of Congress, by the way. That's the intent of Congress and the Small Business Act in encouraging small business participation in federal contracting. The intent was not only to create competition and a strong industrial base, but to also encourage economic development. They're one and the same. So it is important to support these programs, and I encourage all those who have historically supported these programs to really take up the mantle, show up, and fight for these programs.